I'm Margaret in Windsor, and I see that I can use my camera. Suddenly it's back. This morning it was down. My internet's been jammed deliberately, both of them, my provider and the other one, but I could get a little bit of Wi-Fi on my providers recently. Anyway, I'm not going to take up time again. I just found out the camera is back up. I was telling this morning, if I'm looking puny, puny's not the word for it. I'm allergic to chemicals, and they've been when I have to inhale them, and I'm in a close quarter, it makes my immune system attack itself and cause mass inflammation. And over years, it affects your kidneys and every part of your body, your lungs, etc., liver. Um, my train of thought's interrupted because this has been going on and off, and granted it rained. Granted, people do construction, paving, and remodeling and all that, but you can use it. It's a perfect weapon. That's all I'm going to say. To make you run from place to place, and all the time telling about running in a campaign and to replace Congressman Larry McDonald. And therein is what I'm going to get to, because Larry Flint was shot in Lawrenceville, Georgia, when I was living in Marietta. And I was doing a medical malpractice book, and it involved the Tesla files that were stolen in 30. And now that I find out that they were stolen by the Illuminati, but also Professor at MIT, who is John George Trump, President Trump's uncle. So anyway, I like Trump, and I would be awfully hurt if I found out he was anything different. I think he's a good man. Anyway, I was doing that, and you can program a pilot, to take down a plane, fly into oblivion, or into the ocean, or the side of a mountain, you name it. So you have to tell about why the shootings are happening, and then, God forbid, you tell about the people it's been used on that work for the government. A friend of mine was related, an uncle, the best I remember, or cousins, I know they were close like that, was one of the astronauts over a couple of the shuttles, and I put his name up here a lot. He was FBI undercover for a newspaper, acting as newspaper reporter. He covered Los Alamos and New Mexico and all that. Now then, to get back to this morning when this went off, my camera stopped, just about like everything else on Q. At least it's back up if it'll upload now, right? The launcher's not off or something. Now, I was telling this because I told about the KAL. That was a good example. There's others. The one that went down at Lockerbie, Scotland, and there's a long list of them. That the pilot was obviously programmed, but they don't tell you about mind control. Now then, let me relate to this, and you can connect it. I was listening to George Norrie, who normally he's the best of the lot. He tells the truth and he deletes it. So I don't know. To me, he's best you've got, though, over here going now and telling some of the truth. But he made the statement last night or night before last, I don't know, this whole fuming and using the paints and chemicals up on the roof up over me for the last how many days up and down here is really taking its toll on me. I'm allergic to them. But now then, my train of thought will get, because it bothers me when I've had a gut full of it. You can't cure it. It's an autoimmune. And if the people don't remove what's bothering me, then I have to remove myself. So thus you can run me, and that's all I'm going to say. But in that political campaign, when I was flown out to Flint, let me say that, and Larry McDonald was a doctor I'd written about. He was U.S. congressman. Supposedly he went down in the KAL in flight from Juneau, Alaska to Seoul, South Korea. And on that flight was supposed to be Larry McDonald and Richard Nixon. And Geraldo Rivera was taken off, and so was Nixon just prior to takeoff. You know they took Larry McDonald off. I've heard others say that now to make it appear he died. So anyway, all those went down. 286 or 96 drowned. And I got in the campaign to replace Congressman Dr. Larry McDonald. But I want to have you look back at some of these I know were taken down. They were done in patterns. But I was this morning when this went off here, and I couldn't use my camera till now, and I did try. Um, they're talking here about the 737s Boeing just put out. In the last 5 months, two of them have crashed with everybody on board. I believe I'm right. Died. And so they banned them in the rest of the world, or most places in the world, except here in the United States. Well, on one point, look at what it does to Boeing. Man, that'll hurt if they take all those planes down, or whatever happens, or they're sued. Okay, they will do that to correct it, and they, like on George Norrie's last night or night before, everybody should be told about it, because people fly and they're concerned, and he flies and he's concerned if he's on one going to go down. How do you know about mind control? This is what I've been telling, if you want to call it preaching, I guess that's a good word for it, trying to get people to listen, because that's how your school shootings, they were done in patterns. And then you can cure illnesses, and you can create it, cancer, any of it, make it appear as suicide, anything. Like Robin Williams, I'll bring him in again because that's a perfect example. Anyway, Scott Peterson was programmed. That was a program takedown involving his wife and his unborn child, Connor. I'll tell you another one is Chris Watts up here that just confessed, they said, to killing his wife and two daughters, and he's hated. He said that he did it. He didn't know why. Well, of course he didn't do it. He was programmed to. The people that programmed are the ones that are committing the crime. But he doesn't know it, because your press is Illuminati, and they're not going to tell it. They're the ones who took down my father and did this to me and my children. And I'm not even going to go into that again. I've put so many YouTubes up. And on Facebook. But what I wanted to get to is the programming of a pilot right now on here and what it does. Mr. Norrie last night, who, anyway, I listen to him every night, so I must like him. He was saying it really should be told about the planes, what's causing them to go down, and if they need be grounded. Well, the same thing needs to be done about the mind control murders and the use of mind control in it. And it would scare people. Why one and not the other weapon be told, that's used in it. So I was making a connection back to the KL that went down. I hope I'm not being redundant here, in 83. When they took, it was en route from Juneau, Alaska to Seoul, South Korea. And Larry McDonald, the U.S. congressman I wrote about, and doctor, was supposed to have gone down on it, and 296 people, or 286 died, drowned. He was supposed to be on the plane, but Nixon, who you get into the Watergate tapes, and Henry Kissinger, and what was on the 18.5-minute gap, what they were doing to someone, and that was subpoenaed, so they couldn't have orders to kill this person, and what they were going to do to her coming from the Oval Office. Well, it did. Kissinger was Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense under Nixon. Anyway, what I'm going to say is Nixon was on that KL. Prior to takeoff, he was removed. So they knew it was going down, and Geraldo Rivera was on it, and he got off. So now then I was telling this because I thought about it. The Zimmermans he was a pilot, and he was friends of ours and lived in the same complex we did, my husband and I, and our children. Anyway, he worked for Piedmont. Now, then, he didn't go down in this plane, but in Cedar Town, Georgia, that's between Atlanta and Huntsville, Alabama, that's your Space Center and all that, and Redstone Arsenal Command Center. Really point sitting there. Anyway, Piedmont went down, and it showed it on TV that the helicopters with the news people in trying to get off from Hartsville. It's been renamed Jackson Hartsville. But the news reporters couldn't get up. The helicopters wouldn't go. Now then, I want to get back to Cedar Town, Georgia, where it just went down. The first person there was Jack Hartsfield, who's the friend I talk about. He's FBI, but he's undercover as a news reporter. And his nephew, I believe it is, I'm sure it is the astronaut commander of the shuttles, two of them. Hank Hartsfield, who's from Alabama himself, was born there. So you've got Jack Hartsfield, the first person that comes to Cedar Town and to the Piedmont crash. You got Wayne Williams, who was a photographer, and later, so plane had to gone down in, I don't know, 76, 77, because Wayne Williams was later, he's African American, and he was a music performer, a music, I can't even talk, I'm trying to get it up here, promoter. He was, after I was almost killed April Fool Day of 80 and was taken across the state line illegally, where I did work for the district attorney, but it was really, really horrible what happened, and I basically have never seen my children again, except briefly a few times back then. They never knew the truth, and they were helpless themselves. My apartment, everything, stripped, everything a crime done to me. So don't let me forget right now with the fumes and they're painting and all that up here, tarring and gluing the roof up here just over me. I'm allergic to it. Anybody would act, and bother anybody. Oh, don't let me forget. So I'm talking about Piedmont Air, and Wayne Williams and Jack Hartsfield were the first on the scene. So later, okay, here's the point I wanted to make. It's never been cleared up for me, and I don't think anybody. The Piedmont was from NASA, had NASA people on it, and Redstone, I guess, people in the space industry, scientists. They went down. I don't know how many died or how many were on there, but they were taken to Piedmont Hospital. This is Larry McDonald's and hospital where Gene Srokerman was murdered, and at Dr. Hardiman's office, and I'm telling about it in the book, and all this happens to me. Then I find out later I've been kidnapped and all this, and had a letter from the FBI. I won't say that again, two of them. Anyway, if I can keep my train of thought here and my eardrum doesn't burst again from all this stuff going on, chemicals, but okay, now I've lost my train of thought. Piedmont Hospital are where the victims on that plane went down. And looking back, knowing what I know now, I wonder if that was mind control used on the pilot, because Cedar Town, Georgia in itself is a little town, and it gets to work its way in some things that I knew back then. So now then, Wayne in 1980 or 81, was 81 because it's after they removed me almost permanently, and I'm not sure. Anyway, Wayne was arrested for the murder of the black children in Atlanta. So I'm trying all I can do to everybody, the media, everybody. I have gone and with, I even called Mary Welcome from Huntsville, and she said, she did believe me. She's Wayne's attorney. She was going to send an attorney and get a deposition. Well, they tried to kill me again, so she never got her deposition. And I'm going to skip here that Wayne Williams was tried, and you get into, if you ever hear about the carpet, was what they found. They sent the fiber to Alabama Crime Lab. They almost killed me, and I'm not going to go in and tell you again on April Fool Day what they did to me. But you get into I went for a tox to see what had been put in me. I thought maybe it could be neutralized, and it turned out to be holy hell. That was the 1st of April of '80, and oh wow, the lab never done, etc. And I'm across the state line, Lina Dempsey, mother of the twins. I was stuffed in her car in that condition, and I'm going to just say that I'm not going to get into all of it again. That a tox screen was finally done in Huntsville on the 6th, on the, okay, that's April Fool Day of the 1st of April on a Tuesday. Now the Wednesday, a week and a few days later, a tox screen's done again. It's supposed to go to Alabama crime lab. It didn't. It came back when I finally got my hands on it. Came back from the crime lab in Atlanta, where the girl did my book. I'd run an ad to type it, for someone to type it, because I had to work to try to pay the bills and get it published. Well, she told me to call her if I was concerned about the book, how she was doing. So I did call her one day, and the Georgia Crime Lab answered, and I said, well, I must have made a mistake. But they transferred me to her, and she was working on my book at the time. Now that I'm just showing you this one thing, the mix-up in the Wayne Williams, the carpet fiber should have been sent to the Atlanta Crime Lab. I'm sure they'll come up with a reason they didn't. And the tests that were finally done, tox screen, should have been sent to Alabama, because that's where I was. But it wasn't. It was sent from Atlanta Crime Lab. Anyway, I'm going to put this up. Maynard Jackson, who was an African American and mayor back then of Atlanta, he and the police commissioner, Lee Brown. You have to get the background on Lee Brown. After then was mayor at least once or twice, maybe, of Houston. But he was transferred as police commissioner to Houston from Atlanta, and he was that for 3, 4, I don't know, a long time. But then he ends up being the drug czar, which is no easy job and not a high job. It is for Clinton administration. I could get into some other drug czars there, or I already have on there. But anyway, if this is still going up, they went on Lee Brown, the police commissioner, and Maynard Jackson went up, and they're both African Americans, and Wayne Williams was. And they said on ABC, there should be taped somewhere if they haven't been destroyed, said that Wayne Williams, did not commit the crimes, that it was the mechanism used. Well, that's all it was said. They didn't say, hey, it was mind control used. Anyway, it was taken away from the attorney who was representing him there at the end of the trial. And Wayne Williams was appointed, or another attorney came in there from the CIA, I believe, and took over his trial. Well, he was found guilty, and later they say he was trained outside at a CIA headquarters, or not headquarters, but near Atlanta. Now, I don't know, to me, it's a horrible thing, mind control is, but I've told this and I've walked and I have had things done to me and people hate my guts. So I'm going to say this. I cared and I thought people should know and about my kidnapping. And I find out, I've been told they didn't want to know, they didn't care. Well, I bet Scott Peterson's parents would like to know. I understand last night that they put a moratorium on the death penalty out there, so I think that spared him the death penalty, at least for a while, but he's been in prison since, 2003.